It all started with a seismic decision, one that would send shockwaves through the global aviation industry and set the stage for a high-stakes standoff between two superpowers. The US government began weighing the possibility of freezing export licenses for the advanced jet engines powering China's new C-919 passenger plane, a move that could halt the project in its tracks. Washington was determined to clip Beijing's wings before its ambitious aviation project could truly take flight, fearing the rise of a formidable new competitor in the skies. This was no minor dispute, it was a direct strike at China's technological ambitions, a calculated attempt to ground a rising rival and protect American dominance in aerospace. The world watched closely as the US targeted the LEAP-1C engine, a critical component co-produced by General Electric and France's Safran, which was essential for the C-919's success. By threatening to cut off this vital supply, the US was effectively holding the entire C-919 project hostage, putting years of work and billions of dollars on the line. Officially, the justification was national security and the risk of reverse engineering, but to many observers it was clear this was also about protecting American interests and maintaining a technological edge. The stakes were enormous, years of research, billions in investment, and the hopes of an entire nation now at risk of being lost in a single policy decision. For COMAC, the C-919 was more than just a plane. It was a symbol of national pride, technological progress, and China's determination to compete on the world stage. The threat forced China to confront its deep reliance on foreign technology, exposing a vulnerability that had long been overlooked in its quest for innovation. In the end, the US ultimately backed down from a full ban, but the warning shot was more than enough to send a clear message to Beijing and the world. It was a wake-up call for China, exposing critical vulnerabilities in its supply chain and highlighting the risks of depending on foreign suppliers for key technologies. The incident didn't kill the C-919. Instead, it ignited a nationwide push for self-sufficiency, spurring massive investment in research and development of homegrown jet engines. What began as an attempt to ground the C-919 became the catalyst for China to accelerate its efforts to develop its own advanced jet engine technology, determined to never be held hostage again. The effort to block China's progress only fueled its determination, uniting engineers, policymakers, and industry leaders in a common cause. The race for technological independence had truly begun, setting the stage for a new era in global aviation and a fierce competition for the skies. The C-919 is China's answer to the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320, designed to break a decades-long duopoly. It's a modern, fuel-efficient jet for 158 to 192 passengers, aiming straight at the world's best sellers. For China, the C-919 is a leap forward, a declaration of readiness to compete globally. Developed by state-owned COMAC, the project has consumed over a decade and massive national investment. By early 2024, the C-919 had over 1,200 orders, mostly from Chinese airlines, guaranteeing steady production and revenue. The project is about more than a plane. It's about building a domestic aerospace ecosystem. Success would elevate China's industrial base, create high-skilled jobs, and foster innovation. The global aviation market is worth trillions, with China as the biggest growth driver. The C-919's arrival signals the end of the Boeing-Airbus duopoly and the rise of a new competitor. The world's skies are about to get a lot more crowded and competitive. The US move to block engine exports was part of a broader, high-stakes strategy to slow China's rapid technological rise and maintain American dominance in critical industries. Officials in Washington feared that if China gained access to advanced LEAP-1C engines, it would quickly learn from the technology, reverse engineer key components, and eventually build its own, eroding America's competitive edge in aviation. Export controls became a powerful weapon in a growing tech war, with both sides maneuvering for advantage in a contest that extended far beyond aviation. American companies like General Electric faced a difficult dilemma: either lose access to the massive Chinese market, risking billions in revenue, or continue business and face mounting national security concerns at home. The debate in Washington was fierce and deeply divided. Should the US continue to engage with China, or cut it off entirely and risk creating an even stronger, more independent rival in the long run? The Department of Commerce responded by blacklisting dozens of Chinese tech firms, citing concerns over dual-use technologies that could be used for both civilian and military purposes. The business community, however, warned that blocking China could backfire, accelerating its drive for self-reliance and potentially shutting US firms out of one of the world's fastest-growing markets. Ultimately, after intense lobbying from the aviation industry and behind-the-scenes negotiations, a full ban on LEAP-1C engines was avoided, at least for the time being. But the damage was already done. China realized its supply chain was dangerously vulnerable to foreign pressure and began reassessing its entire approach. The US had shown it was willing to weaponize technology, fundamentally changing China's strategy and pushing it to accelerate its own innovation efforts. The attempt to ground the C-919 ultimately failed, but it awakened a determined competitor, fueling a new era of ambition and resolve within China's aviation sector. The tech blockade became a turning point, marking the start of a new phase in the global technology race. China was now on a mission to secure its own future, investing heavily in research, talent, and homegrown innovation to ensure it would never be caught off guard again. Despite mounting threats of sanctions and intense international scrutiny, the C-919 project pressed on with remarkable speed and determination. Engineers and workers across China collaborated tirelessly, overcoming technical and political hurdles that would have stalled many other programs. After its highly anticipated maiden flight in 2017, the C-919 underwent years of rigorous testing, both on the ground and in the air. By 2022, it had successfully passed all requirements and received its airworthiness certificate from Chinese regulators, marking a major milestone for the nation's aviation industry. In May 2023, China Eastern Airlines proudly launched the C-919's first commercial flight, an event celebrated nationwide as a symbol of technological progress and national pride. The aircraft quickly became a reliable workhorse on domestic routes, earning positive feedback from passengers for its quiet, modern cabin, comfortable seating, and smooth ride. Airlines praised its fuel efficiency and operational reliability. Within just a year, the C-919 had logged thousands of flight hours and safely carried tens of thousands of passengers, proving its capabilities in real-world operations and building trust among airlines and travelers alike. International interest surged, with the C-919 making a splash at the 2024 Singapore Air Show, drawing attention from global airlines and industry experts eager to see China's challenger up close. Brunei's Gallop Air became the first new international customer, signaling growing confidence in the jet and hinting at cracks in the long-standing Western duopoly of Boeing and Airbus. With over 1,200 orders already placed, COMAC is now assured a decade of stable production and growth, fueling further innovation and expansion in China's aviation sector. The US strategy to stifle the C-919 had ultimately backfired. The jet was not only flying but also selling and gaining momentum in the global market. The C-919 was no longer just a symbol of ambition, it had become a commercial reality, operating alongside established jets and reshaping the competitive landscape. China's aviation ambitions had truly taken off, marking the dawn of a new era for the nation's aerospace industry and its place on the world stage. For any new aircraft, the airworthiness certificate is everything. Without it, a jet can't fly commercially, especially outside its home country. The FAA and EASA set the global standard. Their approval opens the world's markets. COMAC wants the C-919 to join this exclusive club, but certification is a grueling, expensive process. Western regulators are slow to validate new players, especially from strategic rivals like China. Political undertones are hard to ignore. Delays can act as non-tariff barriers, protecting Boeing and Airbus. Despite this, COMAC is actively pursuing EASA validation, which would unlock Europe and boost global credibility. Achieving this would prove the C-919 meets not just Chinese but global safety standards. For China, international certification is essential to truly compete. The C-919's future depends on winning over the world's toughest regulators. The battle for the skies is as much about paperwork as it is about engineering. The US threat to cut off engines exposed just how deeply China's aviation sector relied on foreign technology. Instead of crippling the C-919 project, it sparked a powerful and determined response: the creation of the CJ-1000A engine. Developed by AVIC, the CJ-1000A is China's very first high-bypass turbofan for commercial jets, a leap in national aerospace capability. Building a modern jet engine is one of the world's toughest engineering feats, long dominated by just a few Western firms. The CJ-1000A's development quickly became a national priority, with massive funding and the country's top talent. Prototypes have already undergone extensive ground and flight testing, steadily moving toward certification. Comparable to the LEAP-1C, the CJ-1000A's key advantage is that it can't be sanctioned or restricted. It's a symbol of technological independence, freeing China's aviation ambitions from foreign control and limitations. The roar of the CJ-1000A marks a bold new era for Chinese aviation. US sanctions aimed to hobble China's C-919, but instead, they fueled a tech revolution. The threat of being cut off made self-sufficiency a national imperative. China poured billions into R&D, uniting government, industry and academia behind flagship projects like the C-919 and CJ-1000A. The push for innovation spread beyond aerospace, boosting advanced materials, software and manufacturing across the economy. Sanctions made the C-919 a patriotic choice for Chinese airlines, strengthening its domestic market. Ironically, U.S. actions turned the C-919 into a symbol of resilience and a commercial success. The attempt to block China only accelerated its rise. The C-919 and CJ-1000A story is about more than an airplane, it's a shift in the global order. The Boeing-Airbus duopoly now faces a real challenger thanks in part to U.S. efforts to block China. China is already developing the next-generation CJ-2000 engine for wide-body jets, showing long-term ambition. COMAC is building smart factories to ramp up C-919 production, using automation and digital tech. As the C-919 gains traction, Boeing and Airbus will see their market share in China erode. The industry is shifting from a stable duopoly to a three-way contest. The C-919 saga shows the limits of sanctions and the power of innovation. Trying to suppress a rival can spark even greater determination and progress. The US ban was meant as checkmate, but it became the opening move in a new era. In a world of soaring ambitions, can any barrier truly stop human ingenuity?